ਇੱਕ ਓਂਕਾਰ ਸਤਨਾਮ ਕਰਤਾ ਪੁਰਖ ਨਿਰਭਉ ਨਿਰਵੈਰ ਅਕਾਲ ਮੂਰਤ ਅਜੂਨੀ ਸੈਭੰ ਗੁਰ ਪ੍ਰਸਾਦ ਜਪ ਆਦ ਸਚ ਜੁਗਾਦ ਸਚ ਹੈ ਵੀ ਸਚ ਨਾਨਕ ਹੋਸੀ ਵੀ ਸਚ ਇਕ ਅਦਤੀ ਗੁਰੂ ਨਾਨਕ ਦੇਵਾ ਓਂਕਾਰ ਗੁਰ ਅੰਗਦ ਪੇਵਾ ਸਤਨਾਮ ਗੁਰ ਅਮਰ ਪਿਆਰੇ ਕਰਤਾ ਰਾਮਦਾਸ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਪੁਰਖ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਅਰਜਨ ਸੁਖਦਾਨੀ ਨਿਰਭਉ ਹਰ ਗੋਬਿੰਦ ਗੁਣ ਖਾਨੀ ਨਿਰਵੈਰ ਗੁਰੂ ਹੈ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਹਰਿ ਰਾਇ ਅਕਾਲ ਮੂਰਤ ਹਰਿ ਕ੍ਰਿਸ਼ਨ ਧਿਆਏ ਅਜੂਨੀ ਤੇਗ ਬਹਾਦਰ ਰਾਏ ਸੈਭੰ ਗੁਰ ਦਸਵੇਂ ਸਹਾय ਗੁਰ ਪ੍ਰਸਾਦ ਗ੍ਰੰਥ ਗੁਰ ਗਿਆਨਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਬੰਦਨ ਭਗਵਾਨਾ ਬਾਣੀ ਗੁਰੂ ਗੁਰੂ ਹੈ ਬਾਣੀ ਵਿੱਚ ਬਾਣੀ ਅਮਰ ਸਾਰੇ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਕਹੈ ਸੇਵਕ ਜਨ ਮਾਨੇ ਪ੍ਰਤੱਖ ਗੁਰੂ ਨਿਸਤਾਰੇ मुख उछले शास्त्र खाट पेंगरन छर जाए अंध लखे बदरो सुने जो काल कृपा कराए कहा बुद्ध भव तुझ हमारी बन सके महिमा जो तारी हम न सकते कर सिर तुम्हारी आप ले हो तुम कला सुधारी दंडौत बंधन अनक बार सर्व कला सम्राट डोलन ते राखो प्रभु नानक दे करार्थ सो कह टल गुरु सेविया एनिस सहज सुभाए दर्शन परसिय गुरु के जन्म मरण दुख जाए दर्शन परसे गुरु के जन्म मरण दुख जाए।
सतनाम श्री वाहिगुरु साहिब जी। सोचै सोच न होवई जे सोची लखवार चुपै चुप न होवई जे लाए रहा लिवदार भुखियां भुख न उतरी जे बुन्ना बुरिया पार सैस सियान पार लख होए ता एक न चले नाल किव सचियारा हुई है किव कूड़े टुटे पाल हुक्म रजाई चलना नानक लिखिया नाल।
वाहिगुरु जी का खालसा वाहिगुरु जी की फतेह। गुरु रूप साध संगत वाहिगुरु जी का खालसा वाहिगुरु जी की फतेह। Today we're going to continue on with the Sri Jap Ji Sahib. In the previous 30 videos that we have done, we have covered the introduction into the Sri Jap Ji Sahib and gone over the various definitions found within the Sri Mool Mantra. Today we're going to actually start on the first pauri of the Sri Jap Ji Sahib, which starts off from where Kamalpreet Singh started Sochai, Soch and The reason for this is the Sidhs, obviously, what we need to remember is the Jap Ji Sahib is a continuous discourse of question and answers that takes place between Guru Nanak Dev Ji and either the Sidhs or other spiritual individuals throughout the world. Obviously, we'll get up to Pauri 21 where we get the Sakya in Baghdad, we get Munda Santokh Sampardaic, which is again with the Sidhs at Achal Vatala. This is with the Sidhs here at Mount Samir. With Gorakhnath, Machandranath, Chambanath, Gugunath, all those Naths that were there who were higher than society, but preaching their way of liberation rather than the way of God. So the Sidhs asked a number of questions to Sri Guru Nanak Dev Ji after hearing the Mool Mantra. And they asked, within the tikas, there are differences in the number of questions asked. What we're going to do is we're going to run by the tika, which is the commentary by Sant Kirpal Singh Ji Satogaliwale. And they run through more questions initially, and we will later on go back to the tikas of the Sampardaic taksals as well, by Sant Gurbachan Singh Ji as well. But here we'll start off, and there are 7 questions asked by the Sidhs to Guru Nanak Dev Ji. They said, can a person propagate God? Can a person gain God through these 7 techniques? The first one is to remain hygienically clean, pure. The second one is through deliberation. The third one is through conscious thought and focus. The fourth one is through dispassionate, through virag, through renunciating the world, in the way that is taught through the Buddhism, through the teachings of Mahavir and the teachings of the Buddha. The fifth question that was asked is, can God be propagated through remaining silent? The sixth one is, can God be propagated by remaining hungry, by not eating? One of the last one of the main things in Jainism is that they believe that every form within the world has life, contains a soul, contains a jeev. But they state that even plants and vegetation contain one tattva, so it can feel. It can't do anything else, it can't smell, it can't do all these other things, but it can feel. And for that reason they consider the ultimate sacrifice of ahimsa to be to abstain from food and to starve yourself to death to gain liberation. So this is one of the practices that was being taught within India at the time. And then the seventh question is, through many tricks and being clever, through this sort of wise trickery, can a person obtain God? And Sri Guru Nanak Dev Ji went on to answer those questions. What they did was that the questions that are now going to be answered are going to be the lines of Gurbani. So when we recite the Gurbani, when we start Sochai, Soch na hovi, je sochi lakhwa, what we are doing is we are reciting the answer. But it's essential for somebody to listen to the Katha, to obtain Santya of Gurbani, to understand what is the cause of this Gurbani and why are these words being uttered and to who. What is the message that's being delivered to humanity. And it's essential to listen to Katha. You'll understand that these are the questions asked, and now Gurbani is going to answer it. So Kamalpreet Singh, if we can start off, please.
Sochai soch na hove, je sochi lakhwar.
Guru Nanak Dev Ji go on to answer the first 4 questions with this one line. Sochai soch na hove, je sochi lakhwar. The first definition is soch. Soch means to remain clean, to be pure. Sochai soch na hove, je sochi lakhwar. They say a person can be outwardly clean. So they can clean their bodies, wash their bodies, do panjasnan, make sure they're hygienically clean using whatever they want. But they can do this hundreds of thousands of times. That's what Guru Nanak Dev Ji says. A person can do this 100,000 times by remaining outwardly clean. And then they repeat that the same line is used for to answer the second question. So they say Sochai soch na hovi. They say here, Soch here is thinking, to deliberate. They say a person can deliberate upon God 1,000 times, 1,000,000 times, 100,000 times. Here it says lakhwar. But they say a person can deliberate 100,000 times, but their antishkara will still not remain pure. And that will, even if they are to repeatedly deliberate on God, it will not be totally pure. Now, the question answered here mentions an antishkaran. And the antishkaran is a mind concept. It's the concept of the mind within an individual. Now, to say that we focus with our mind or deliberate with our mind is not enough. Within the Vedantic traditions, the term antishkaran is used to separate the mind. It is a 4-fold mind. And within the antishkaran are 4 different things. There is the ego, the pride. There is the man, which is the mind. There is the chit, which is the consciousness. And there's the buddhi, which is the intellect. And according to Vedanta, according to Eastern philosophy, that is what makes up the mind. The mind is made up of the antishkaran. Whereas in the West we just refer to it as the mind. Within the mind, within my brain, within wherever. But it's been separated. So you can at the same time use your intellect and be consciously thinking of something else. You can use your mind and be seeing everything, taking everything in, and intellectually grasping at whatever's taking place. You can be thinking about whatever takes place and have ego and pride at the same time upon what you're seeing. So the antishkaran, if you are deliberating upon Waheguru, if you are deliberating on Waheguru hundreds of thousands of times, it still will not make your antishkaran pure. So that's the second answer. The third answer is, if you are to think outwardly about God, if you have to focus on God outwardly through His creation and do it 100,000 times, again, this would not clean your mind. This will not purify your thoughts, purify your focus. And the last one is Sochai. Sochai, the fourth definition given for Sochai is Virag. Because if a person thinks, they deliberate. If a person deliberates, then they become dispassionate upon their ideas and thoughts. And here Sri Guru Nanak Dev Ji says, look, if a person is to adopt Virag, if a person is to adopt dispassion, then just through dispassion alone, even if a person is to emphasize this dispassionate thoughts that they have 100,000 times, they still cannot propagate God. So those are the first four answers that Sri Guru Nanak Dev Ji gives. There's a number of Sakhya, there's a number of stories that are given within the Sampardaic Tikas. There's one within the Tika of Sant Gyani Gurbachan Singh Ji, which mentions the story of a landowner, a Jat, and a Brahmin. And the Brahmin comes onto the land of the landowner. He comes onto his farm and he sat there. And the Jat has been working all day within his farm. And while he's there, obviously he's been working, he's worked with sweat, and the Brahmin's there meditating. And he asks the Brahmin, he says, how can I become as pure as you? And he explains a number of things. He gives him a number of techniques and says you need to wash 101 times with the water of a well. You need to then rub mud into your skin. You then need to use the dung of pigs and cover your skin in that. And then you need to wash it all off with water again. And then you'll be totally pure. And then the landowner obviously is testing the Brahmin and his purity. And he then says, okay, that's fine. So he goes off and he does all these things. He makes all the effort to do all these things in front of the Brahmin. And once the Brahmin is satisfied that he's followed everything down to the letter, he says, right, now you are purified, you are now pure. And then the landowner realises, well, we're going to test his purity. So he he gargles some water within his mouth. And then he spits it at the Brahmin, and it hits the Brahmin in the face. The water does. The Brahmin then starts to verbally abuse the landowner and says, look what you've done. You've made me impure. And the landowner laughs. He says, well, I did all the techniques that you told me to. You told me I was pure, and now the water from my purified body has hit yours, and you're saying you are now impure. And the moral of that story is that it's the same as Guru Nanak Dev Ji says. It doesn't matter how much you externally purify yourself, you will still be considered impure. Through your mouth, through your nose, through your ears, there's impurities and dirt always coming out of your body. And so that's one of the stories that's given. Again, there's something very similar to that within the Amir Pandal that's given as well. That purity only exists at a mental level in that sort of way. External purity, you'll never be totally pure. But those are the answers to the four questions given. Then Maharaj continues.
Chupai chup na hove, je lai raha livtar.
Maharaj here states that again, by remaining quiet, by remaining silent, by remaining mute, that a person cannot obtain Vaheguru through just remaining quiet. It just doesn't happen. Because a person stays outwardly quiet, but internally their mind is constantly wandering, and it remains alive and loud and giving an insight into things that are going on. And it constantly focuses on all sorts of things. There's a number of mourn. Mourn means to remain silent. Ganga mourn is to not speak. But you get others. There's 4 in total, and you can find them within the writings of the Sri Vicharamala by Mahant Surjit Singh Ji Sevapanthi. And within there, the different types of mourn are mentioned. The last one is where you become silent. Out of the 4, the last one is where you become silent after obtaining oneness with Vaheguru. After merging with Vaheguru, a person then remain silent and will always remain silent. So, Chupai Chup na hove je lara avtar. Again, there's a sakhi from Sri Guru Gobind Singh Ji's court. It's found in one of the commentaries, where Sri Guru Gobind Singh Ji has a sadhu turn up within his court, and then the sadhu himself remains silent all the time. The sadhu, although outwardly silent, shows a distinct pleasure in remaining silent, and shows that he's willing to, through this method, become one with God, because he believes that it will help his focus, and if he doesn't speak, then it will bring him closer to Vaheguru. Sri Guru Gobind Singh Ji wanted to test the resolve of the sadhu, because he used to come into the court. And Sri Guru Gobind Singh Ji wanted to test the resolve, so he spoke to the Singhs beforehand and said, I'm going to ask you to look after the sadhu tonight. And within the court, the sadhu's there, and Guru Gobind Singh Ji praises the sadhu for remaining silent and his austeric his practices and everything, and states, look, today you should stay at the house of one of my beloved Singhs, and they will look after you. He obviously nods and agrees to that. The Guru then speaks to his Sikh and says, look, we're going to test the resolve of this individual, so when you take him home, don't mistreat him, but at the same time, don't give him fresh food. Give him a roti that's old, give him some food that tastes bitter, and make him sleep where it's difficult to sleep, and just do that for tonight, and then come back to the court tomorrow. And then when I ask you what has taken place, you tell me how you looked after this individual. But in my presence, state that you looked after him very well, you fed him, you looked after him, gave him the best beds and everything. And this will be our ruse to check how devoted this individual is to God. And Sri Guru Gobind Singh Ji did that, sent the sadhu off with the Sikh. The Sikh then fed a roti, he gave him a chapati which was really old, very difficult to swallow, gave him a glass of water which had salt in, gave him food which was bitter, gave him a place to stay which was very uncomfortable. And the next day when they came back to the court, the Guru asked the Sikh how he looked after the sadhu, and the Sikh replied that he had looked after him with all the comforts possible, provided him with food, bedding, everything. And then hearing this, the sadhu got angrier and angrier. Mentally he was enraged, because he knew what the Sikh was saying was a lie, but he couldn't take it anymore. And at that point he broke his silence, and started shouting and swearing, and said to the Guru, look, he's lying, he did this, he did that, he didn't look after me. And Sri Guru Gobind Singh Ji just laughed, and they just said, we wanted to test your resolve, silence. And this is the problem with remaining silent, that you can remain silent by not talking a lot, but your mind is constantly talking, and it's that which you need to silence, and it's through meditation that you do that. So Guru Nanak Dev Ji, again, they go on to state exactly the same thing here, where they're saying, look, Chupai Chup na hove je lai raha avtar. They're saying a person can try to remain silent externally, but internally they'll always falter. Sadhgani Hari Singh Ji Rundawa, they had a sadhu come and stay with them, and he had made a penance that he was going to remain silent. And instead of talking, what he did was he used to have a blackboard on a string put over his neck, and a blackboard in front of him. And when he wanted something, he would write it on the blackboard. And Baba Hari Singh Ji said to him at the time, he said, you are remaining silent, but obviously there is no silence, because you're writing the thoughts that are constantly coming within your mind. So this type of silence that you're trying to keep is false. The silence that you want to keep is by controlling your mind, silencing your mind from all the vices. And it's through that way that you become one with God, not through an external silence. And those are the first 5 questions answered by Sri Guru Nanak Dev Ji. And what we're going to do is we're going to leave this here and then continue on in the next video. So Kamalpreet Singh, if you could recite the pauri please, and we'll do the Mangal.
ਸੋਚੈ ਸੋਚ ਨਾ ਹੋਵੇ ਜੇ ਸੋਚੀ ਲੱਖ ਵਾਰ, ਚੁਪੈ ਚੁਪ ਨਾ ਹੋਵੇ ਜੇ ਲਾਇ ਰਹਾ ਲਿਵਤਾਰ, ਭੁਖਿਆ ਭੁਖ ਨਾ ਉਤਰੀ ਜੇ ਬੰਨਾ ਪੁਰੀਆ ਪਾਰ, ਸੈਸ ਸਿਆਣਪਾ ਲੱਖ ਹੋਏ ਤਾਂ ਇੱਕ ਨਾ ਚੱਲੇ ਨਾਲ, ਕਿਵ ਸਚਿਆਰਾ ਹੋਈਐ ਕਿਵ ਕੂੜੇ ਟੁੱਟੇ ਪਾਲ, ਹੁਕਮ ਰਜਾਈ ਚਲਣਾ ਨਾਨਕ ਲਿਖਿਆ ਨਾਲ। ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ
ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ। हे गोबिंद हे गोपाल हे दयाल लाल, प्राणनाथ अनाथ सखे दीन दर्द निवार, हे समरथ अगम पूर्ण मोहे में आतार, अंधकूप महापयान नानक पार उतार। आए प्रभु शरणागति कृपा निध दयाल, एक अखर हर मन वसै नानक होत निहाल, एक अखर हर मन वसै नानक होत निहाल। वाहिगुरू जी का खालसा वाहिगुरू जी की फतेह।